Flex Scene Manager comes with events, which I will sometimes refer to as callbacks, and these allow you to be notified when certain things occur within Flex Scene Manager. Each callback has a start and end event. When the start variant is invoked, no actions have been performed yet. The start event indicates that an action will execute. For example, if you try to load a scene that is already loaded, the start event will not be called as no scenes must be loaded. But if that scene does need to be loaded, then the onLoadSceneStart event will call. And its partner, onLoadSceneEnd event, will call after the scene load has occurred. All events with their respective start and end suffixes behave this way. I'll be talking about each event in order, and there's also a diagram demonstrating execution order in the video description and project as well. OnSceneQ exists because you may want to perform actions when scenes are to be loaded or unloaded, such as show a loading screen canvas. OnSceneQ will invoke when a queue has started or completed for loading and unloading scenes. OnSceneQ will be run on both server and client. Multiple scene loads and unloads may occur before OnSceneQEnd is invoked. For example, if you tell one client to load into scene A and another to load into scene B at the same time. If you were to do this, events will run in the following order: OnSceneQStart, OnLoadSceneStart, OnLoadSceneEnd, again with the OnLoadSceneStart and then end, and lastly OnSceneQEnd. When end is called for OnSceneQ, there are no more pending scene changes. This is why you may use OnSceneQ for a loading screen. You can present the canvas when the queue starts and hide the canvas when the queue ends. I had already talked about when onLoadScene will invoke. This can be used for both server and clients. Let's take a look at the arguments. Here's LoadSceneStart event args. This will be supplied when the onLoadSceneStart event invokes. The only information available when this is raw data. Raw data consists of data used to begin the action, whether it be loading or unloading scenes. The raw data isn't used for anything special, but it might prove useful for you in the right circumstances. Looking at it, you will find the scope type, such as if the scene was loaded for the entire network or a connection. If connections, you will find connections will be populated, otherwise it will not. You will also find the scene data you passed in and scene data for the current network scenes. There is also as server, which if true indicates this action is being run as server, and if false as client. Lastly is the load options, which I've talked about in another tutorial. In between the two onLoadScene events is onLoadScene%change. This is invoked every time the scene loading progress has been updated and will occur on server and clients. Looking at the event arguments, you'll find it has the same raw data option, as well what percentage of the scenes have been loaded. The percent value will be between 0 and 1. As you expect, the onLoadSceneEnd is the next event, and let's go look at the arguments. There's some extra information in comparison to the start counterpart. There is an array containing which scenes have been loaded, and an array containing skipped scenes. The loaded scenes are naturally scenes which were just loaded. Skipped scene names may or may not contain values. Skipped scene names will contain the name of scenes which were skipped, commonly because they were already loaded. After the loading callbacks, we have the unloading callbacks. Like before, onLoadSceneStart will call first when an unload is about to occur. This will only invoke if checks have passed and a scene is going to be unloaded. OnUnloadScene works for server and client. Since scenes are being unloaded, the only thing available within the event arguments is the raw data, which as talked about before is the data used to initialize the scene unload. OnUnloadSceneEnd is of course called after the unload had completed and contains the same raw data as the start event. There is a fair chance you'll use the next two events regularly. They are start and end for onClientPresenceChange. These events will only run on the server. OnClientPresenceChange is invoked when a client has either fully left a scene or just joined a scene. The main difference between start and end is that the start is called before visibility is updated while end is called afterwards. In other words, if being added to a scene, then onClientPresenceChange start is invoked before the spawn messages are sent to the client for the scene, while end is afterwards. If you're initializing after clients have joined or fully left scenes, you will likely use the end variant. There is one gotcha with the start variant. If a client presence is removed from a scene and you use start to send a target RPC, for example, the RPC will not deliver if dependent on an object within that scene. This unfortunately is a mirror race condition which I have no way to get around. Let's take a look at the event arguments for onClientPresenceChange. They are the same for start and end. Scene is the first value, and this contains the scene information as it is on the server. As mentioned, onClientPresenceChange only invokes on the server. You can use this value to get information about which scene the client was added to or removed from. Next is a connection which was added to or removed from the scene. And very last is the added boolean, which if true, the client is being added to the scene, otherwise they are being removed from the scene. That completes the talk of events. As always, if you have any further questions about Flex Scene Manager, please hop on my Discord and let me know.